So recently we detected an employee editing her medical record. So it came across and it said that she edited her, like her vitals. And I was like, that's weird. That can't be right. So I get with her and she immediately starts crying and says that she changed her weight. Because she works at a clinic and she just could not bear for her coworkers to know how much she really weighed. But then she felt so guilty about it that I guess she just verbally reported I weigh 150 pounds. But she probably wouldn't have said that because that's a great weight. Whatever she said. And then, that's my goal weight. She said, so then she felt so guilty about it because she knew it was wrong because it would affect, I think she was trying to get some bariatric surgery. So she went back in there and updated it so that it would be correct. So the system detected that and she received a written warning because you can't do that. So you have to think about, think about the long game. If you come to work at Baptist, you'll kind of be funneled here to get your health care because of our insurance program and our employee discount program. But if you don't want people to know what's going on with you, you might consider going to a clinic or something, a hospital outside of our system. Oh, look, I'm back. So people forget their role. There are some reasons that you guys can access, use, or disclose the patient's information, and you guys fall under healthcare operations. So according to the government, growing new healthcare professionals is part of our job. So you're free to access information that you need in your role as a student. The patients cannot refuse to have you present because it's covered under privacy. You can just present as part of the healthcare team and whatever needs to be going on. So there shouldn't be any problems with that. Sometimes employees or students will ask, like, what do I have to do to be HIPAA compliant? And the government really doesn't give us a checklist of these are all the things you have to do. What the government says is that you have to take reasonable precautions. That's your next R on your piece of paper. So reasonable precautions is anything that you can do, you should do. So when there's an allegation of a violation, the first thing I will ask, Keisha, I think that's your name, my eyes are old. I will ask, did you need this information to do your job? And then you're going to say, yes. You're going to say, yes, I needed to do that. And then the next question I will ask is there anything that you could have done to prevent this situation from happening? Do you need me? Yes, I'm sweating because I'm so nervous up here. But yes. So then I will ask, is there anything else that you could have done to prevent this from happening? If her answer is yes, I could have prevented this, then she did not use a reasonable precaution, right? Do y'all kind of see that? And so depending on your unit or your clinic or wherever you're working, your reasonable precautions can be different based on your work setting. Now let me give you my favorite reasonable precaution example. We had a patient who was getting an echocardiogram of her heart, and the employee was new. So you guys can kind of sympathize with that a little bit. So the employee saw something that was concerning. She told the patient, stay in the bed, your bed rails are up. I'm going to go get my coworker. You're safe. Just stay right here. I'll be right back. The employee leaves the room. And so the patient, even though the computer screens were faced away from the patient, she sensed that they were still up. So what did she do? She got out of the bed. She got her phone out of her purse. She took pictures of the computer screen, and then she got back in the bed and did mention it to the employees when they came back in. Just like pretending like it didn't happen. But when she got home, who did she call? Me. And she said that we had a total disregard for patient privacy. She demanded that the employee be disciplined, and she demanded that we have follow-up education. And so one screen was the patient's exam, which we don't love patients taking pictures, but sometimes we can't prevent that. But the other screen was the schedule for the day. So it had 8 other patients. It had their names, their dates of birth, their tests they were having done, their admission diagnosis, and their ordering physician. And so we had to send letters to those 8 other patients letting them know what happened, right? Does everybody kind of see how? So what's the reasonable precautions the employee didn't take? We didn't lock her screen. So when I went to the department meeting, because the supervisor said, let's all talk about it together at the same time. So I went to the department meeting, and the employees were they were kind of upset because they said, whose fault is this that it happened? They said it was the patient's fault, and that disciplinary action shouldn't have been issued because the patient was instructed to stay in the bed, and the patient didn't follow instructions. And so, I don't know, I sympathize with that a tiny bit, but did that fly? healthcare provider, as a student, you have a legal and ethical obligation to protect patient information. And if you don't, and there's a policy violation, then there'll be disciplinary action, and then there'll be follow-up education. So we kind of had to hug that one out, but I think everybody's on board now with logging out of their computer screen. Does anybody have any questions about reasonable precautions? No? Okay, so patients have rights. In your role as a student, when you're working with patients, please help them to understand that they have access to their information. And so when you are a patient, you have access to your information through the MyChart portal. How many of you are familiar with the MyChart portal? Raise those hands. Not very many. So how many of you are patients of Baptist Health in some form, either at a clinic or at a hospital? So go ahead and sign up for the MyChart portal so that you can help the patients understand how to access it. You can use it. Because as a patient, if you need access to your information, you can go through the MyChart portal or you can go to the medical records department. But are you going to use Epic to get into your information? No, you're not going to do that. Because we'll detect it and we'll have to talk to your instructor. It won't be okay. So patients, that's the most important right that we like to make sure that patients are aware of. They also have some other rights that are listed out here for you. Under other useful information, everybody say never. I'll scroll all the way down here. Like say, like you really need it.
Never.
Never. So guess what you are never going to do? Use your personal electronic device to capture, store, or transmit patient information. Everybody clear? It's just not going to happen. There's no excuse for it. There's no mitigating circumstance. It is a breach every single time. Do employees continue to forget? Yes. Is it likely that one of you in this room will forget? Yes. So let's talk about some examples. Dude here is not going to forget. What is your name? Travis. I'm going to write that down, Travis. So recently we had a family take a video of one of our employees doing something nice for a patient. And the family asked the employee's permission. The employee said, yes, sure, I don't mind, you can take the video. So the employee's doing something nice for the patient's laying in the bed. The family couldn't get it to upload to social media. So what did they do? They asked the employee to upload it to social media. And the employee did. And then what happened? No. Fire. You have to be doing something really mean. You have to be mean or have a history of violations to get fired. So the employee got a written warning, but so I'm sitting at a ball game trying to watch my kid, play a little Pee-wee or whatever, and my phone, starts blowing up, and we have to get in touch with this employee and have her take the video down. So when we talked to the employee, she said, but we were doing something nice, and I wanted people to see that about us. I wanted people to understand that we're a caring unit and that we love our patients and we do all these wonderful nice things for us. But you have to go back to role. Whose job is it to advertise for us and publicize and those types of things? The strategic development department, our marketing department. So if you're involved in something that's really beneficial, you can absolutely advertise that, but there's a right way to do it. Contact strategic development. They'll come down, have the patient sign the right form. They'll use their big fancy equipment. The patient will be on the side of a bus going around Little Rock before you know it. But that is not something that you are going to be doing. Is everybody clear about that? We also recently had an employee Snapchat a patient's voice. What? Because the patient was intoxicated and the employee thought that what the patient was saying was funny. So the recording did not identify the patient. He didn't say his name. It was just him, talking about stuff. So if that recording had identified the patient, it would have been a privacy violation. But even violations that don't identify the patient are violations of the personal electronic device policy, which says that you will never capture, store, or transmit images of patients. Everybody clear about that? I'm going to show you some pictures in a little bit about how employees, not here in Arkansas, but in other states, are being criminally prosecuted for exploiting patients on social media. And if that is successful in those other states, I definitely feel like it'll just sweep across the country. And, you can be charged with abuse and neglect of a patient, criminally charged, and those laws almost always contain words for exploitation. We just don't use that because it's a big word and it's hard to say. But those words are in the laws, and those are being taken advantage of, especially in social media situations. We have an auditing system that I've referenced a couple times. It's called Fair Warning. What is different about Fair Warning than our previous system? Our previous system was very manual. We just magically picked some patients and we would check and see who was in their chart. But the Fair Warning system checks every patient. So it's much more comprehensive. It gets a feed from all the different clinical systems. So don't think like, oh, I'll just get into the x-ray system, they won't catch me, or I'll just look in the lab system, they won't catch me, because we will. And we're adding more systems. We're going to add home health coming out very soon. And it also knows a lot about you as a user, and then it leverages that to determine what you should be doing. So recently it detected a patient who was being treated in the emergency room at Little Rock. But an employee in one of our regional hospitals was accessing the record while the patient was in the ER at Little Rock. So the patient was not transferred. So that's what set the flag off in the system. This patient didn't come from Heber Springs, for example, to Little Rock. So why is it Heber Springs, someone who's at work at Heber Springs looking at the chart? So when we called to talk to the user said, oh, that's my papa. I'm his power of attorney. I am legally entitled to this information. This is not a privacy violation. So somebody walked through what my answer to that was. Travis. What did I say? It is. What should the user have done? What role was the user in at that time? Family member. Role of a family member. And how do family members get information?
They get information via that portal.
They can use the portal, they can use medical records, or they can talk to the staff, right? So while the employee was probably legally entitled to that information, did she misuse her access? Yes, so there was. She was not fired. Written warning for that employee. Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions about the information we've covered so far? I'm sorry, what? You can get 3 as an employee. I don't know if it's a little different for you guys as students, but as an employee, I have like 4 minutes. You can get 3 written warnings in a year. But if you've done something terrible, then you'll be terminated. That has malice. So other than our terminations, we've terminated 2 people for coworker snooping recently. Our previous terminations have been access of a protected class. So any patient who has a substance abuse problem, a mental health disorder, or a communicable disease is considered protected class under the regulations and therefore protected class under our policy. So if you do something wrong one time to a normal patient, you'll get a written warning. But if you do something wrong one time to a protected class patient, you're likely to be suspended or terminated. So prior to that, our terminations were we had an employee and a patient get into an argument in public. And the employee disclosed the patient's protected class status in the argument in front of other people. So that employee was terminated. Then we also had an employee who found out that his high school flame, this has been a couple of years now, his high school flame was in the hospital. And so he was just being nosy. He just wanted to know what was going on with the patient. So he accessed the chart. He did not intend to find out that the high school flame was newly diagnosed HIV. But that is what he found out. So it was access of a protected class, and the employee was terminated. So there are some, like we talked about, a lot of times it's a written warning, but it can be termination. If you are terminated for a privacy violation, you are never eligible for rehire anywhere within the system. And we will not give you external access to our system. So say you're terminated, and then you decide to go work at a doctor's office. Well, you can go work at the doctor's office all you want. But if the doctor says, hey, I need to get you access into the VADA system so you can print like my consults and help me take care of my clinic patients, we're not going to let you have that access. So you'll be flagged in the system forever, which is a big deal, right? Everybody needs to. So, and you just never know, like what's it going to be? Is it going to be termination? Is it going to be written warning? I can just tell you that it is not worth it. It is just not worth it. When you're trying to decide, do I want to look this up? Do I want to post this on social media? Do I want to get this chart? Or do I want to be able to buy groceries? What's going to be the answer? Travis. We're going to be able to buy groceries. We did have a student commit a terminable violation a couple of years ago. It was a student who took video of visitors from the neck down and posted them to social media. It was turned into me as a privacy violation, but the privacy rules only apply to our patients, right? But I wanted to see the videos just to make sure that she didn't capture any patients in it. And she didn't, thank goodness. So we kicked it back over to the school. But the school decided, because she was being mean, like she was making fun of the visitors, like if their clothes didn't match, or they had a limp, just being hateful. So anyway, so since she was being mean, what happened? She was terminated, and she was expelled from the nursing program, and she did not get a refund. Because I asked, I was like, is she going to get a refund? They were like, no. No refund for her. So, does anybody have any questions? I don't have to cover social media, because if you're not capturing, storing, or transmitting, it's never going to get to social media, right? Right? So I don't really have to cover that. So just know that social media is out. Do not be messing and posting. Just don't do it. I don't know what else to tell you. Just don't do it. Employees will always ask, but what about if I get off work? Then can I go be in pictures? What's your role when you're off work? You're just a cool person. You're off work, right? But when you're at work, this is the worst presentation I've ever given in my life. I'm not joking. I'll just hold it like this. So when you are at work, you're not going to be doing that. But when you are done with your rotation, just take your badge off so that people don't assume that you're at work. But it's when you are at work, nothing to do with social media. Don't take pictures of yourself. Don't take pictures of things. Our rule is if you can go somewhere that the public cannot go, then you can't be taking pictures of that. We've seen employees take pictures of themselves like in the operating rooms, in the dirty linen rooms, and they think it's okay because there aren't any patients in the pictures. But the policies are clear that you can't capture, store, or transmit patients or any sort of sensitive business information. So if it's somewhere that you can go that the public can't go, then that's probably going to be considered sensitive. Med rooms, that kind of stuff. Any questions about that? Okay, so I'm going to try to redeem myself a little bit and show y'all some pictures, and then hopefully it'll spark some conversation because you are going to have to answer some questions or I won't leave. I mean, ask some questions or I won't leave. Yes? Oh, good. Stand up. What's your name?
I'm Zach.
Zach. Make some friends. Tell us about yourself, Zach.
I'm a search tech. So,
You're a what?
a search tech, scrub
A
tech.
scrub tech? Okay.
I have a question.
Let's hear it.
Social media. So say the patient records you, whatever. Blah,
Oh,
blah,
yeah.
blah. If they make you aware that you contact someone, does it become a violation if they told us and we didn't, or we didn't disclose it?
So his question relates to being recorded by the patients and their families. We don't typically consider those to be privacy violations because the patient is recording their own information, right? So they're entitled to their own information. However, they cannot record you without your consent. So don't be, I don't know what your instructors tell you. Do they tell you not to be in the recordings? So you should try to get yourself out of there and then go notify someone. Because, as a student, you might not say the exact right thing that you need to say and you could get sued. But what we tell the staff is if you're comfortable being recorded, you know what's about to happen and everything's okay. Sometimes we will see patients asked to record like their discharge instructions. Like, I'm afraid I'm not going to remember how to dress the wound when I get home. Can I record you doing it so I can, watch that when I get back to the house? We are loading onto the MyChart portal a series of videos to help patients with that kind of information. We have a third-party vendor for that. But you would not be in trouble if you didn't know. But as a student, I would say, everybody ask your instructors about how they feel about you being in videos with the patients. Just do whatever that is. If they tell you it's okay if you're comfortable, then it's okay. But if they say it's never okay, then don't be in there. Everybody clear on that? Travis, did you want to ask a question? You're good? Okay. Okay, I'm going to show y'all some pictures, and we're going to talk about how these are violations, if they are, if they're not, and we'll go from there. Now, these are not all Baptist Health. If their faces are blurred out, then they work for us. If their faces are not blurred out, then they don't. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? Does this person know they're being taken a photo of? What about this dude in the back? There's no, and what if this computer screen was up? That would be bad, right? So you cannot capture, store, or transmit images of the patients, ever. Everybody say it. Never gonna happen. And you can't capture, store, or transmit images of coworkers without their consent. So if someone is smiling in the camera, you know they've consented. But does this person look like she's giving consent? No. Oh, what about this? This is not a privacy violation. But I love this example because the person, this is not even Baptist, this is UAMS. But a patient sent this to me. And guess what the caption was for this email? Who's taking care of the patient? And so, I mean, we don't know. This could be a unit where the people get there at 6 and the patients don't get there till 7. We have no idea. But you have to think about the public's perception of what you're doing. What does the public know about healthcare? That it's expensive. That's the only thing they really know, is that it is expensive. And so what does this look like? That we don't have anything to do. And is that true? There's lots to be getting done, right? All right, what about this picture? This is us. This is a violation. Look at this. So, this was up for about a minute before someone called and we had the foundation take it down. This was posted by the foundation. So what the regulations say is that you can disclose information to people who need to know. So the people who work on this unit and the visitors need to know where the patients are, right? Does the world, the internet, do they need to know? So this would be a violation, right? So all they would have had to do is what? Just crop it. Just a little bit of cropping would have been just fine there. How about this? So this is not Baptist. And it's not funny, y'all. It's not funny. This would get you fired. To be clear, this would get you fired. So this is one of those cases that I talked about where an employee has been charged, criminally charged, with exploiting a patient. So what the prosecution, the county attorney or whatever, is saying is that she exploited this patient for personal gain. And the personal gain was through social media. Does that make sense? So this, to be clear, this did not happen in Baptist. This has not happened in Arkansas that I'm aware of. But if this person is successfully prosecuted, it will happen here in Arkansas. They will start applying it across the different states. Right? So I hope this family never saw that. How about this one? So this is the other person who's been criminally prosecuted for exploiting a patient. It's not okay. Everybody say fired. Fired. You're going to be fired. Expelled, whatever we call it. Okay, this is not us either. But you cannot capture, store, or transmit images of patients. Everybody clear about that? Yes. So this patient is demented and she's wandering and this nurse is dancing with her and there was a very beautiful article about how kind he was to do this. But since she can't consent and the family didn't consent, would this be okay? No. So even though you cannot see her face, you can't identify her, this would be considered a violation of the personal electronic device policy. Everybody clear about that? So who should we have called if we wanted to let the world know how great we are? Ghostbusters, strategic development, and just notify your instructor. We can get involved. You know, we had a patient get married in the, not a patient's granddaughter. Like Papa was about to die, and the wedding was going to be in a couple of days, so they just moved it up, and we had the wedding in the ICU, took a bunch of pictures, it was in the Democrat Gazette. It was wonderful. And then he died, like on the wedding day, he died. You know, it would have been the original date. But we did it the right way. Everybody was on board, we had all the right forms, that kind of stuff. Okay, this is us. What about this? What are the 2 words here that let you know this is a violation? I'm at work. And so he looks like he can take his own picture. So let's problem solve for this employee. What are some alternatives that could have happened? The employee could have said, it was a female employee, but the employee could have, the patient could have taken the picture, right? Or some other family member. Or she could have said, at the end, glad my shift is over, my brother's getting surgery, right? So literally this was up 2 minutes before someone sent a screenshot. And then what happened to the employee? Written warning. Written warning. Okay, what about this picture? What's all this? Medicine. Somebody might think this is the good medicine. Come up and rob you. I'm pretty sure that's just some inhalers or stuff. Okay, now this is long, but this is one of my new favorite examples. So orange is the patient's girlfriend. She is not an employee. So read through this. Blue is a student, not one of you guys, but a student. So let me know when you're ready. So is that like an H&P? I mean, that's like a lot of information. So then here's a little student, not a Baptist Health student, says, is this the Jace guy? Then someone in the public says, yes, that is the Jace guy. The student says, they brought him in while I was doing my clinicals. We drew his blood, and I hope he has a speedy recovery. And then look what the girlfriend says. And so after she gave that whole H&P, you know, how dare anyone know that he had his blood drawn? But is the girlfriend right? Yes. Your involvement in a patient's care is confidential. Don't be disclosing it. The government says that there are 18 ways to identify a patient. You know, it's all the name, date of birth, social, driver's license number. The 18th way is any other information that would reasonably lead to the identification of the patient. So even if you are talking about a patient on social media and you don't disclose their name, if someone can figure out who you're talking about, because it's been in the news, it's been kind of a high profile something, even another one of your coworkers can figure it out, then you have committed a violation. So when I say stay away from social media, when it comes to talking about patients, I really do mean it. Oh, and look, the girlfriend's super nice though. She says, oh, thank you. How about this? Maybe the surgery people can tell us more about what's going on here. What does this mean, third outfit? What was your name, the guy that stood up? Zach. What does that mean, third outfit?
I would assume that things got messy and they had to change out.
Do you think this patient wants people to know that?
Probably not.
Probably not. So then here's this would get you fired. I'll be clear about that, be firing. So look at, this girl doesn't work here, so that's why I didn't cover up her name. So this person says, I hate feet. She says, me too, but that's my new job. And then they love working with Dr. Lawson. She says, we're shaving off a bunion. So I don't know where she works, and I'm not trying, if anybody knows this girl, I'm not trying to get her in trouble or anything. But this would not be okay. This would be the F word, fired, here at Baptist. All right. So this was up, like I said, for like a minute before someone turned it into compliance. So when we get a complaint, the first thing I do is check the HR system so I can figure out how to get in touch with you to investigate. When I looked up this employee in the HR system, it said that she was on medical leave. So I was like, well, she must be back, and we haven't updated the HR system yet, because they only update those right before the pay period ends. So I called to the unit and asked for the supervisor, and I asked for the employee, and he said, she's on medical leave. I said, are you sure she's not back? Because she's taking pictures of patients. And he said, no, she's definitely on medical leave. And he said, but you can talk to her, but she's not the one who's sick. It's her husband. He's the one who's sick, but she's fine if you need to talk to her. And I said, is he a white guy? You know? He was like, yeah. So anyway, this is the patient's husband. The employee's husband. So is this a privacy violation? No. Because what role was she in when she took this photo? She's the wife. Can the wife do whatever the wife wants? Yeah. So we never called her. And I'm assuming her husband doesn't mind. He seems to be participating in this photo. But I love to use this as an example because it's really about thinking about your role. What role am I in? And you want to be above reproach
when people are asking you, you know, it is not worth getting called into your room where people are already waiting for you and there's papers on the desk. None of that is good. So when you're making these decisions as you're starting your career as a student and going on, you know, as a professional, just think about it. Really, that's all I can say, is just think about it. How about this picture? Not okay. What happened to these employees? Ring warning. How about these? What does this say? Yeah, we got a patient's name back here. Is everybody familiar with the PICU? So that's the Psychiatric Intensive Care Unit. So is that a fragile group of patients? Yeah. And what are we doing? Hanging out. So I sure hope at 542 that there's not, you know, a patient attacking another patient, a patient trying to take their life, because we're just, you know, we've got a lot to do. Hanging out. Okay, so those are the end of those examples. So this is the part where you guys get to ask some questions. We're going to need, like, there's 4 rows, so we're going to need, like, a question from each row. So who over here is going to take one for the team and ask a question? Look around. Pick somebody. Nobody? Somebody. Don't start talking, y'all. We're not done. I should have been a school teacher. Okay. How about you, Laura? Stand on up. Make some friends. You have any questions? Anybody from this? No. Okay, how about this row? I'm not going to go all the way through the rows and not get a question. All right, stand on up. What's your name?
Charles.
I'm going to ask for you to get some bonus points on your exam or something. Okay. Yep, Charlie's an LPN.
And I've had patients that we see, you know, on a regular basis try to add me on Facebook.
Oh,
I haven't accepted anybody, but what do you do in that situation?
yeah. So the question is, can you be friends with your patients on social media? We do not have a policy that says you cannot do that. But we just advise you to follow the Code of Ethical Conduct, you know, keep your work at work. When you're friends with patients on social media, it kind of puts you in a sticky situation because they're going to start asking you in some situations, like, hey, this is my incision. Do you think I should go back to the ER? It looks a little red. You know, and then what are you going to have to say? I can't help you. You need to go to your primary care doctor. You need to go to the ER. Because do we dispense medical advice through social media? When we take care of our patients, where is that documented at? In the medical record. Does anything from social media make its way into the medical record? Are you going to come in the next day and be like, patient contacted me through Facebook and requested that I address the drainage from their, you know, blah, blah. You're not going to do that. So you can be friends with your patients on social media, but you have to be very clear about your role and your boundaries. And if you're at the bedside, you've developed a relationship, you know, because the relationships we have with our patients are one of the best things about healthcare, and they're also one of the hardest things about healthcare to manage. And if someone says, hey, can I friend you? You can maybe just have that conversation right then and say, I'd be happy to be friends with you, but I keep my work life and my personal life very separate. So, you know, maybe try to establish that boundary on the front end. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Oh, he was just-
So I just wanted to ask.
That was so sweet. How about column number 3? Travis. Sorry, you're both wearing blue. Okay.
The 2 people that got charged, well, that are probably going to get charged.
In the other states for exploiting their patients?
Yes.
Mhm.
What would they be charged with?
Exploitation. So under the abuse and neglect statute, there's always a caveat for exploitation. Now typically that has meant in the past, like you forced a patient to do something, like give you their social security check, or you made them, you know, pimped them out or something, you know, something that benefited you financially, right? And that has been used against like home health workers, you know, that go into the patient's home a lot and, you know, develop those kind of relationships because there's not a lot of oversight, you know, in home health of those relationships. But this is the first time the exploitation statute has been used against someone for exploiting patients on social media for personal gain.
What do you think the customers are looking for?
You know, I think they get, I I bet it affects their license, if they're licensed employees. But, you know, I don't know about jail, maybe a fine. I'm not sure, but I am following those. But just like everything else in America, it takes like years. But I'll update everyone at some point. You should know that if you are a licensed employee, which you all will be, and you are terminated for a privacy violation, that we will report that to your licensing board. So we have seen employees actually get into trouble with the status, or former employees get into trouble with the status of their license based on actions that they have taken. Most recently, the employee that we reported, it's a social media violation, Charlie. An employee and a patient developed a bond while she was caring for him. He is married, she is married. Then they decided to be friends on social media, and then she accessed his chart. This is how we detected it. So after he was discharged, had been discharged a period of time, she accessed his chart. And no one else, the fair warning system was like, well, no one else is in the chart. This patient doesn't appear to be getting care. Why is this person in his chart? Because it understands your role. You know, some people it's their job to be in charts after discharge, and some people that's not your job. So she was not someone who would normally be in a chart after discharge. So the fair warning system flagged it. I approached her, and she just said, we're hooking up. You know, it's a thing. It's a big deal. They were friends on social media, but she didn't have his cell phone number. So she got back into his chart to get his cell number. So that is where the violation came in on my side. So, if that makes any sense to you. So you would think that she could have just asked him, like, through social media. Okay, column number 4. Somebody stand up down there. I know I've neglected you guys, but not exploited, just neglected. You kind of have to. The end caps are not pulling their weight. Nobody down there has a question? Let's do it. Way to go. We do not give verbal warnings for privacy violations. So you can get a written counseling, like if you look up your own medical record or your child's medical record, somebody that you are truly legally entitled to their information. But if you look up someone else's medical record, you're going to get a written warning. If there's any sort of malice, personal gain, financial gain, access of a protected class, you'll be suspended and likely terminated. We terminated an employee several years ago for looking up her boyfriend's social security number. The audit was clear that all she did was look at his demographic screen. And she said, I thought you could look at demographics but not clinical. Is that true? No, you cannot access